Welcome, everybody. We're back in the GOAT District. We're real excited. Tonight, we've got an awesome guest, a friend of ours, Adam Krautwurst of Draft Sharks. Adam was a top 5 finisher in the Ffpc main event. What year was that, Adam?
Oh, gosh, 19, whatever year it was, Lamar and CMC coming out.
2019 yep. Sounds about right. Adam also took down the $3,000 Ffpc varsity league last year, which just always has a lot of heavy hitters. Andrew, how are you doing tonight?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting tips from Adam on that varsity because Theo, you, Dan, and I have one of those out in Vegas.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're ready to rock.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
So Adam has been on the pod with us before, but this is his first time coming on solo. Tell us about some of the great work you're doing over at Draft Sharks right now, Adam, and some of the pods you're putting out, some of the content on the site.
Yeah, no, it's great working with those guys, Jared, Kevin, and Matt over at Draft Sharks, and now Mike Shope being part of the podcast team over there. Pumping out a bunch of podcasts. Also gonna dive into my main event strategy article coming up here soon. That'll be out at the end of July. Normally that's early, good enough. Now with these main events kicking off July 4th weekend, it's like I can't get it out in June. So we're doing a bunch of that, and just obviously drafting like crazy. Getting ready to travel in August. But yeah, we're really digging into the projections and all that stuff over here at Draft Sharks.
No, we love Draft Sharks. Jared Smola was on recently. Matt Schaaf is coming on. Mike Schaaf is great. I mean, you guys have just a really, really good team over there, and we respect what you guys are doing a lot because I think our pods kind of cross-pollinate with what we're doing in the high-stakes streets. And we're going to talk a lot of high stakes tonight. But first, I got to ask, Andrew, how's your fishbowl team doing?
You know what? I hated what I did this morning. I should have taken Rondale Moore. I was in the 15th round. I took Isaiah Spiller instead of Rondale Moore, kicking myself. I should have gone even further into the no running backs. But I actually like it a lot. I got Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Pitts, and Aaron Jones. I've been tweeting out the team. Although once I hit the Cole Kmet pick, I stopped loving the sexiness of the team, so I stopped tweeting out. So maybe I get back on that train. Maybe I find some good Cole Kmet gifts, keep the train rolling. How about you, Theo? And
it gets less exciting to tweet out like I drafted Isaiah Spiller at this point than like the earlier rounds.
Yeah,
Adam, you guys had an awesome get together in Buffalo. You did a live fishbowl get together. How was that?
It was amazing. It was Thurman Thomas was there. We raised a bunch of money for his charity. It was cool to meet one of my, I'm a big Bills fan, so to meet one of my like heroes as a kid growing up was really, really cool. And I actually won a raffle for a golf event with him and his wife. So it's me and a buddy are going to go golfing with him and his wife sometime in like September. So that's going to be
sweet.
Incredible. Now I got to dig in. I don't have time. I suck at golf, so I don't even know. Now's not the time to try to dig in with all these drafts coming up. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do, but that's going to be really fun. But the event was incredible. Met a lot of great people. Zach Kruger came in for that. Louis G, Mike Shope. So a lot of great people there.
Maybe that was your fastball story from that, Adam. So just tell me if it was. But because I want you to otherwise save your fastball. Do you have like a C+ story? I want you to say that you're good content for your pods. Do you have like a C+ like joke or like something from like Thurman Thomas that you're willing to share on the pod here? Save your good content for your pod. I want like a C+ something.
Yeah, no, I haven't even really thought about it. I know it was fun because we had like walk-in song. We didn't walk in, but we had like our own like entry songs. So everyone kind of picked their own songs, and it was just kind of fun to see everyone like what songs they were picking. And Thurman was just getting a kick out of all of it. And so, but I think, I don't think I have any specific.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of any funny story.
I put you on a spot.
No, it's fine. And I'll probably think of something throughout the night. But other than me picking fourth and thinking Kyler Murray's a lock and Louis G sniping me at 3 for Kyler Murray, other than me wanting to strangle him for that, it was a great night.
Yeah, we take C+ Thurman Thomas stories or F- Zach Kruger stories. So.
Yeah, there you go.
And Adam, and who are some of the players that you drafted? I know you're still going as we are.
Yeah, so we're still going. We are in the 15th round. And so what I use, what's really a helpful tool for drafts, especially because these drafts go off the rails, right? I mean, you've got all different levels of experience coming in with all these different rules and different stuff, like it's tight end premium, which I know we love, and it's super flex, and it's all this. It's not best ball. So what I love to use is the Draft Sharks has a tool called the Draft War Room, and you can go in there, and it's a live syncing draft, and so you can go in and put in all your roster requirements, and it's like a cheat sheet, but it's dynamic. So as players are getting picked, it's adjusting the values for all those players. And so I went in wanting Kyler Murray, like I said, and once he got sniped, the War Room was telling me to take Cooper Kupp. And in a super flex, I was kind of surprised, but I like what ended up happening in this draft. So I went Cooper Kupp, and then I came back in the second and went Trey Lance fell to me, which I know in the fishbowl he's not like a guy you're really targeting because of the completion percentage, but I still think he could be one of those guys that could, like, if he ends up as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, I'm probably not going to care what his completion percentage is.
Touchdowns are touchdowns are touchdowns at the end.
Right.
Of the day.
Right.
Are you going for a fun team to root for, or are you going for sharp and wise decisions?
Normally it's sharp and wise decisions. And I want to say that I tried to do that here, but again, in that environment that we were in, we did the first maybe 8 to 10 rounds there. I can't even remember. Oh, and I forgot to mention the main event champs were there too.
Oh, sick.
Oh yeah.
So nice. That was really cool to hang out with those guys because they're from Buffalo too. It was great to meet them, and they're going to be at the Expo, and they're going to be out in Vegas and all that. So, because it was fun to chop it up with them. They were in my league, and so yeah, it's different because I don't do a lot of home leagues anymore. So to have a couple drinks and hang out and just joke around, like that was the atmosphere. So I was kind of going for like favorite players. I took Barkley in the third round. I'm a huge Barkley guy this year, and I was I was happy to take DJ Moore. He's a guy I'm higher on now in the 5th round. And then to kind of like what you were saying, to go kind of off the board, I ended up pulling the trigger on Deshaun Watson in the 6th round. So he's my QB2. So we'll see. I mean, my draft really relies on him only being suspended for like 4 to 6 weeks. And if that happens, I really like my team.
There's no one more fun to root for than Deshaun Watson right now.
That's right.
This is true.
That is true.
So my team, I went with Josh Allen. I had the 101, and then I got Derek Carr in the 2nd, which I didn't love going QB, but I think Carr in this format is going to be very good. I think him and like guys like Cousins and Carr, I think are going to be very good fishbowl quarterbacks based on the rules. And then I was able to get CeeDee Lamb and Saquon Barkley, and then I just went fun, wide receiver. I got DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Hunter Renfrow, Kadarius Toney, Darnell Mooney, and then I got a little stack action with Gabe Davis, and then I followed up with a little Dawson Knox. So I'll have a little double Buffalo stack and a single Raiders stack every week, and then I was able to add James Cook a little later, so I have a lot of exposure to Buffalo. But it's a lot of fun. it's great what Scott Fish does for the fantasy community, kind of uniting it, and also how much money he raises for charity with Fantasy Cares. So we really love that. It'll be interesting to see how we all finish up our drafts, because I think we've got some good names for like those last couple of rounds that'll definitely be fun to close it out with. But I want to focus over to what we play, the high stakes streaks, and namely the FFPC tonight, where Adam plays most of his high stakes action. Although, Adam, you bounce around a little bit. In Vegas, you said in Vegas you're going to be doing FFPC drafts, but will you be doing some other high stakes formats? Heading up to that in the summer.
Yes. So, you mean live? What ones am I doing?
Or
live?
Just any, really anything that you're doing, online or live.
Yeah. So I'll be in Kentucky for the KFFSC in late August. That's fun. I drafted in it 2 years ago, went live last year. That was a great time. Farrell puts on a great event over there, a really, really nice event. So that was fun. The highest stakes they have there is $1,000 buy-in. I get in all of the ones of those that are there. So that's fun. That's the 2 weekends, I think, before Vegas. And then I'm going to be doing the FFWC. I'm registered for a couple main events there, and then I'm registered for the 5K live there, I think on Friday night. I'm going to get them all confused, but I'm registered for the 5K there live event. I think that's at the MGM. And then I'm registered for the 3K and the 5K and the 2,500 auction in Vegas, all live. I'm not doing any live like main events, just because you can do those online, and all these other ones you really can't. I mean, you can do the 3K and the 5K online, but half the people are there, half the people are in Vegas. I don't like that vibe. I'd rather be with everybody if they're, and you can't do auctions online, high stakes. So
that's right.
Anytime I can do an auction, I love doing auctions. I took down the 750 last year, so I'm doing that one again this year along with the 2,500. So I'm really excited about that.
You're skipping the one that Dan and I are in. We're in the 1250 on the Friday morning.
The 1250. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Is that an auction?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Friday morning.
I don't remember. I know. No. Then I don't think I'm in that one, because Friday morning I'm in a 5K, because I know I had the Bills game Thursday night that I'll be at. So I lost a whole day of drafting. And I know I have to you guys probably don't want to. We're going off the rails here. But my flight 2 days ago, so I'm flying into Vegas, whatever. I fly from Vegas to LA on Thursday morning. I go to the game, and then I fly from LA back to Vegas Thursday night. That flight just got pushed up to like halftime of the Bills game. So I don't even know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might be driving.
Believe you're on with us and not on with Delta, whoever, trying to get this result.
I'm going to be driving through the night to get back for a 5K at 9:30 in the morning or whatever it is. What a horrible decision.
No, we're super stoked about Vegas. Andrew and I have a number of teams we're splitting out, and we're going to be doing the varsity with Dan. Then Dan and I split a main event out there. I'm doing a bunch of NFFCs, some FFWCs, a bunch of FFPCs. So it's going to be just great. I cannot wait. It's always one of the highlights of the year. And then I get the New York City one the weekend before that for NFFC. Which, Adam, you've got to come downstate and make it there one year. We'd love to see you down there.
I know. It's actually on my calendar. My wife's like, "What is this NFFC New York City?" Because my son is huge into fantasy now, and I really want to get him involved. But he can't draft in Vegas. He can't draft in Kentucky because it's at a casino. So I would love to take him to New York if it fits. I'm gonna try to fit in a trip down there. I got some cousins in Queens, but we'll see. But it is in the calendar. I haven't registered yet. And to be honest with you, like the NFFC, I've never competed in like a high stakes event there. And I just, before in my younger days, I'd be like, yeah, I want to take on everybody. Now with like a bankroll that I'm like working with, I'm like, do I really want to risk it against, because I'm definitely going to be at a disadvantage. I'm drafting against the same guys, but in a new format, there's going to be a learning curve. And I fully admit that I don't know if I want to risk part of the bankroll on a big learning curve like that, but I might just go ahead and do it.
So as somebody who does both, I think that you would not be at an advantage drafting. I think that the disadvantage comes where the guys that play in one single format only have to do waivers in one single format.
Sure.
Where you have to bounce around in waivers, where I think, at least for me, it's a little bit annoying having to bounce between like websites to do waivers. But yeah, no, it's definitely a great time. Live drafts are terrific, and we're less than 2 months away from it, so it's really, really the exciting time of the season. Last week, Andrew and I had a chance to sit down with Ben Gretsch and talk. It turned into I had a very good show sheet with multiple positions, but once we started talking wide receivers, we just couldn't get off of it. Ben is super sharp when it comes to the wide receiver position. It is Andrew's favorite position to draft by far. So we just we galaxy brained it, and it was tremendous. Tonight, I want to pivot over to tight ends. Adam plays a ton of FFPC. Andrew does. I do as well. It's such an important position. And let's just dive right into it. Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. The question for both of you guys: do you see yourself building some early tight end builds with one of those two guys? I'll say for me personally, I've taken Mark Andrews. I took him I had the 111 in the football guys, and he fell to me in the second round. And I liked the way my team turned out with him as my second round selection. And in other formats, non-FFPC, I've been a little more inclined to take those two because they fall. But in FFPC, you're certainly paying a premium. We can start with Adam. Have you built any teams with Andrews Kelce, and do you see yourself doing so moving forward?
So I haven't drafted Andrews yet in any of like I'm sure I've taken him an underdog in one of my 9 million drafts over there. Sure. But like, I think I've done seven or 8 football guys so far, and I have no Mark Andrews. I think the first football guys I did, which might have been one of the first drafts of the whole competition, I took Kelce at the 4. So I do have a build there. I also took Kelce in a player profiler championship over at FFWC. That's like their version of the football guys. I took him. It's not tight end premium. I took him at the 211, and I was super stoked to get him there because he went after ADP. But then in that, like, people were getting. I think Billy was in that draft. Billy Musino. I think he got maybe Hawkinson in like the 9th round or something. I'm like, oh well. If I'd have known I could get like Kittle in the 7th, I might have just waited. But yeah, I'm okay in tight end premium building around Kelce. And then punting it till, there are some, and we'll get into it. There are some deep sleeper, or maybe not deep, but some guys are like late, that I'm okay with drafting. But yes, I have built a little bit around Kelce, not around Andrews yet. I'm not so sure he's a guarantee. I mean, I love, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I love Kyle Pitts this year. And so I really like whenever I get the opportunity.
Definitely save the pick. We're going to dive into him. And I'll follow up. You've drafted Kelce. Do you see Kelce breaking 150 this year? He's had 150 targets one time in his career. And it seems like it could be falling into place where the ADOT might not be as high, but he could get over it this year. I feel like if there's some, week-to-week ambiguity at the wide receiver position there, and maybe a running back by committee, it seems like it could be like an almost like Mahomes has slight tunnel vision for Kelce's season if it all falls right. Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. I mean, the only reason you can't predict injury. Draft Sharks has a pretty good sports injury thing going on over at the website, and everyone should check that out. But you can't predict injuries, and if you don't think Kelce's going to get hurt, how can you not have him getting 150? Even if he slows down a little bit, he's going to get so many targets. He's going to score so many touchdowns. I mean, in a tight end premium situation outside of injury, there's no way he busts. I mean, and when I mean bust, it's like, okay, if you take him as the number 1 tight end, he finishes as the number 3 tight end, I think you're still fine. Maybe top 2. It depends. Like if you're spending a top 6 pick on it.
It depends how the tier break is in the position in FFPC, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think he'd absolutely do it. And I think that he's interesting too, because if you look at like the splits from last season, he had like a stretch where he was battling injuries and the team was a little sporadic on offense, and he had like a few bad weeks in a row, but he smashed in the playoffs. He had the massive game against the Chargers towards the end of the season. So like, if you look at his season kind of in like as a whole, it's not as impressive as looking at the kind of the back half of it. And he had the unfortunate week where he missed with COVID. Hopefully we don't have to say that again. A guy missing with COVID ever again this season. But Kelsey missed the game where we were in the fantasy playoffs, and it was very tilting. I know I had a football guys team that was really good, that really couldn't overcome that. Andrew, how about you with Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, kind of a position you'd be comfortable taking them? Are they guys that you're pivoting in other directions to, or?
So do you mind, great question, Theo. Love the question. Thanks for the question. Do you mind posting the draft board I just shared on the screen?
Absolutely.
So I was convinced that I had not taken any of Mark Andrews, but this is an early, never too early best ball tournament. And I looked at my percentages and I had one. And I was like, okay, what was the team? I'm team 12 here. I went Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts from the turn. So this is my only Mark Andrews team that I have going on FFPC right now. So I think where I'm at, and this was just a unique build for that tournament, but my preferences, especially seeing as I've gotten probably smarter over the past couple of months, or at least more setting kind of what I want to be doing on the back end of the drafts, I've just been avoiding the Kelce Mark Andrews turn and opting for like a Stephon Diggs or maybe like a DeAndre Swift. So I think more recently I have been avoiding both Kelce and Mark Andrews, not necessarily anything against them. I just think that there's production later, which is maybe what, Adam, you're referring to. You just like guys better and you can get access to them a round or a few rounds later.
That's exactly right.
So we're all kind of on the same page. I think for me, like I've taken Andrews at the beginning of the second. I will say there's something to it, and we're going to get into it a little bit on kind of a tight end structure from a team perspective. But I think there's something to it also with those valuable rounds where maybe when you're taking kind of like the mid-tier tight ends, you could be going for a running back or wide receiver with upside if you have exposure to those early tight ends. But we don't need to spend too much time on those guys. I know there's a player that you're both super excited about, and it's Kyle Pitts. Right now, Kyle Pitts in early main events has an ADP of 21 overall. He's squarely in the second round. Andrew and I have seen him go as high as the early second, maybe the 1-2 turn. And we've seen him. I saw him go with the 301 once, but we'll call him a mid to late second round pick. Adam, how much Kyle Pitts are you going to get if he stays right there?
All of them. I mean, I don't love the receivers in that range. Once you get past Mike Evans, to me, like there's so many question marks to me with the Debos and the Tyreeks and the AJ Browns. Like Kyle Pitts has if it wasn't for Kelce, he has just an opportunity, and even with Kelce, to just destroy the slate at tight end. I mean, the guy had 1,000 yards as a rookie tight end. It doesn't happen. Now I get it. You're going to get the Ian Harditzes who say he doesn't play the tight end position, right? Like he plays out wide, but fine. Who cares? Like, I don't care where he plays. He's going to have a ton of targets. Yeah. He was super unlucky in the touchdown department last year. And you can just tell he passes the eye test. He's a freak of nature, and so I just think, their quarterback situation, they don't have a great quarterback situation there, but this quarterback, that's probably going to start. I mean, Delaney Walker had great seasons with him for the Titans. So again, I just think that Kyle Pitts is ascending, and there's been some banter on Twitter back and forth, and I love it. It's where we learn and we're just bouncing stuff off of each other. But this might be a year early for him, but even a year early can still be, even if he finishes as a top 3 tight end, you're still fine. He's not going to kill you, but he has a chance to absolutely smash.
Yeah, and you say take him a year early, where I can see the argument maybe we're drafting him aggressively a year early, but it's going to be like your only opportunity to get him in this range.
That's
if
right.
he progresses slightly. Because year 3, Kyle Pitts, if he finishes as tight end 3, and let's say it's close to, let's say tight end 1, 2, and 3 are significantly above, where he's an impactful player drafted in his range, there's a chance he goes 101 next year, depending on how some things go with running backs. Like if he shows, a massive improvement, he looks like, an alpha, he scores some touchdowns, he does all the things we think he could do, then he's in tight end premium. It's like the sky's the limit. And he's going to also be in the contention for 101 in dynasty startups in FFPC. So I don't know. I don't know if I really like that argument. I think that the better argument will be, I think that there's guys in the second round that can give me better win rates if I take instead of Kyle Pitts. But I think saying like we're drafting Kyle Pitts a year early is not the correct take. That's just my opinion. And Andrew, please spread more propaganda of Pitcoin, because I want my Pitcoin to rise a little bit.
To rise. I don't mind skipping ahead, and I'm not really, but like if you look at the tight ends neck, like Kelsey, Mark Andrews, maybe not him, but Waller, Kittle, you could tell me that Kelsey, Waller, Kittle are all like nothings at the position next year. Like maybe there's just like a total cliff, maybe they're hurt, maybe whatever. I mean, I think I'm more convinced that they fall off an age cliff than Kyle Pitts, doesn't return at least second round value year over year. I mean, I think that's maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, but I think that's where you're going with it. You could see like a meteoric rise, even on like a tight end, 2 or 3 finish from Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I posted another draft board. This is from our football guys that we did live last week, Theo. Super jealous of Team 1 getting him at 212. You said 301, 212. Oh,
that's not it.
That's not it.
That's
not it.
That was my
technical difficulties.
We'll come back to it. But yeah, and what you want to talk about the maximizing the one hole, but what a gift to be able to start with Mccaffrey.
I got it up there. Yeah, and honestly, I mean that's just like it's. I think he's somebody who go back to like the Diggs or Swift. I think even early in that second round, he still gives you access. And I know we're talking structure later, but I think he gives you access to be able to do a lot of free things with your team. Now, getting at the 212 to 301, as you like I said, Theo, you mentioned like that's stealing. That's unbelievable value. But I just love Kyle Pitts anywhere in the second round where you can get him, because then you can like push your guys into like the late round 1 if you really need to, if you wanted to get a certain build out of a Kyle Pitts team.
Yeah. And I think so we can also remind ourselves, like, we love Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews we were drafting him as tight end 6 last year.
Yep.
And now he's tight end 1 or 2. And like, again, I've taken him, but at the end of the year, Kyle Pitts outscoring Mark Andrews is certainly in the realm of possibilities. And you're getting him, significantly lower. So he's definitely polarizing in terms of like where to take him, but I don't think anybody is betting against him taking a big step in year 2. And I think one other thing to consider with Pitts is, Adam brought up like Ian Hartitz talking about how he's a wide receiver. Like,
good
wide receivers improve so much between their rookie and second year. It's like where we see the most improvement. So if just projecting him as a wide receiver, I think we'd be incredibly excited, about him at that position, let alone having him tight end eligibility. So we're all in on Pitts. All 3 of us like Pitts where he's going, and all 3 of us will have some exposure to Pitts. We'll own a little bit more Pitcoin by the end of this draft season. But now let's talk about some tight ends that maybe are a little less interesting, and we'll keep the board open here because we sort of see Pitts in his own tier. He seems to be like in like his own little range. I'd say at about a round range at least before the next one goes. Darren Waller, Dalton Schultz, George Kittle have kind of a mini tier, and Schultz is kind of all over the place. This particular draft, he's in the 3rd round. You see him in the 5th round sometimes. So we'll call it like a Waller, and then usually Kittle, but sometimes Schultz before Kittle. They're kind of all in their own little range. I've drafted Darren Waller. I took him at 310 in the current main event I'm in a slow draft. I like Waller, and he would be the player I like in that range the most of those couple of guys, although he is going highest ADP. Adam, what's your thoughts on Waller? And then we can touch on Kittle, and maybe we'll save Schultz.
Yeah, so I have Waller and one football guys. I don't really. It's one of those guys that you take because he's like the next guy there, and you want an early tight end. But there's so many question marks around Waller, not about his skills or anything, but you added an absolute target hog with Davante Adams to that offense. Brand new coaching staff coming in there, so you just don't know what to expect out of him. He's not he's not Kelsey's age, but he's not young, super young either. So in that range, that's another reason. I mean, that's another reason why I love Pitts, because I can take Pitts and I'm not going to make these decisions generally. Kittle, I have a few times, but only because I love the idea of stacking him with Trey Lance. And when I lose out on Lance later, I get pissed that I spent a pick on Kittle and I didn't get Lance. So if I have to pick between Kittle or Waller, I go Kittle. But again, he's got question marks. You have a run first young quarterback, a ton of weapons there. Kittle's always hurt because he thinks he's a franchise left tackle and tries to pancake everybody every single play. Those two are two guys that I'll generally, once the high stakes season comes around, the main events start in full gear and all these, those are two guys I'll probably be skipping over. I know someone talked about, Adam, are you going to bring the sauce tonight or whatever? Like, if you're in a draft with me, just know in those leagues I'll probably be passing on Darren Waller and Kittle, because there are some guys I like later. And there's some other guys I really different positions that I like a little bit better in that range too.
So I would agree with I like guys a little bit better in the range of Waller, but like Waller at like 310 for me, it offered me not only structure of getting what I think will be a top 5 tight end. And if he fails a little bit, we could call him tight end 6 or 7, but I think he's a very talented player. Davante Adams certainly could bring down, Davante's the alpha. It's clear. But at the end of the day, it could be like a pie is getting larger type argument for the offense as a whole. We've seen Carr have great success with Waller, and I don't think Waller would be going away. I also think it's going to be a very consolidated offense in terms of like the target tree, where I think it's going to be easy to kind of predict, on a week-to-week basis which way it's going in Las Vegas. So he's super interesting. Andrew, what's your thoughts on Darren Waller? Is there like a specific range where you would want to draft him? Do you want to have some exposure to him?
I think my answer is he'd have to fall closer to his max range than his ADP for me to be willing to go after him. Like a lot of guys would have to clear out in that third round, especially as I'm looking at this particular draft board. I think I'm still taking DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle ahead of Darren Waller. But I'm also the guy who took OJ Howard in the third round of 2019. So I just maybe I become a little gun shy after doing that. I think it's just one of those things where if I miss the elite tight end, or I think elite tight end is the first or second round, it's something where I wait. But I understand the argument for taking him, and I will skip ahead again on you, Theo. Like structure wise, I think it's a good question. We asked Gretsch towards the end of the podcast. Got to go back and listen. We slipped it in right at the end, Theo, of the naked tight end.
Yeah.
At what range, Adam, would you be comfortable? And maybe it's after 3. That's fine. Maybe it's after 1. Maybe it's you're not comfortable going naked tight end. But is there a point where, hey, I went tight end so early that I can't be taking like another one during those like rounds like 10 through 13 where maybe you want to grab that second tight end? Is there a cutoff in the tight end tier where you'd feel comfortable going naked tight end based on what you did early in the draft?
Yeah, I'll probably never go naked tight end, only because in FFPC and I'm sure there are some examples of guys getting even game last year. People getting Schultz off the waiver wire.
Yeah.
And so early in the season, there
and
are those.
Logan Thomas was the year before.
That's right. There's always that one guy.
It's Dawson Knox last year.
Yeah.
Dalton Schultz. The waiver wire tight ends you've been hitting. Pretty much every year we've had a guy that's become at least usable, if not 2. And when I say usable, it's inside the top 12.
Right. And And so I get it, but I would just feel much more comfortable taking a guy that I believe in later, because you can still go get that tight end off waivers and have three. Like there's nothing saying, and that's the whole argument. And I'm going way off the rails now. Like, I'm a believer in zero RB can work. I won the 3K last year going zero RB, but it's a lot of the premise on that is, hey, well, you're going to get these running backs off waivers. Well, you still got to win the bids to get these running backs. So you still got to win the bid to get that tight end. Some guy might go crazy and bid on that tight end, and now you have a naked tight end with the guy that hit on somebody else's roster. So I won't go naked tight end even if I go Pitts, but I'll wait. And I got a guy this year that I really like. And that 13, 14, he might have moved up. I know Theo's a big ADP guy over here. I want to make sure I don't miss.
If you quote ADP wrong in front of Theo,
that's right. I want to make sure he's going in like that.
Omerta?
It's a pet peeve, but Adam has to tell the truth until August 1st. It's pretty much, you can defer to tiers after August 1st. But there's no fantasy Omerta when you're not in a main right now and all that kind of stuff. There you go.
Okay, I think that's. I think my point again with bringing up with Waller is I think that he and maybe Kittle are about my cutoff for maybe doing it. If I'm taking them that early, I think I'm being aggressive here in the early drafting season. I get what you said. I think I'd rather have the wide receiver, running back, lotto tickets. And pay for a little bit of information. Understanding that I still have to go and win the bids, but I'm more and more warming up to the strategy of, if I'm going to be so aggressive and take that first, second, or third round tight end, then I think I want the extra lotto tickets instead of the second tight end there.
Sure.
And yeah, I kind of lean to what Adam said. It's hard to go naked tight end. I think it's also because I think that's a great point Adam made on, if you like a tight end too, and you think he's really going to beat ADP, having him on your roster is a helpful thing. Also, with the tight end premium format, you might be able to use him in the flex, during bye weeks, and you're preventing another team from getting a Dawson Knox, a Pat Freiermuth, a guy who, was undrafted or was drafted towards the very end, and they both ended up finishing in the top 13 tight ends last year. Which is, again, valuable to have in this format. I want to go back to a question in the chat. The chat is lit. We have Stearns, Famous J, Josh McAtee, and it's actually a question from Josh in reference to Kyle Pitts. We talk about consolidated target trees. Do you think that drafting Pitts and Drake London on the same team is a nice strategy? Or would it be just taking a shot on one Falcon in a potentially bad offense?
I like it. I love it in best ball, and I like it here too, because if you think they're going to be the top two, which they're absolutely going to be, on a team that is going to be terrible, they're going to have to throw the ball. I know they want to not throw it a lot, but they're going to have to, so they're going to be, and the defenses that they face aren't exceptional in their division. Tampa's good, but you got Carolina and the Saints. They're not these big stout defenses. So yeah, I mean, if you're getting most of the targets from those guys, and again, if Drake London, if I didn't absolutely love Pitts, and if Drake London wasn't going way below 80, in my opinion, I love where Drake London's going. So if you're able to get both of those guys at ADP, I absolutely love it.
How about you, Andrew? London and Pitts on the same team?
No. I mean, maybe I just think at that point I'm using that as a tiebreaker and probably shying a little bit away from London. I like them both, but probably I'm not going full bore into. I think you'd probably have to take them two picks in 6 rounds on the Falcons offense. I just think I'm shying away from that ever so slightly, even though I do like them both individually.
And then a shout out to Famous J. We have a question about what are your differences in drafting a best ball team compared to a season long one with weekly lineups, a managed league versus an unmanaged best ball. I'm interested to see what Adam and Andrew say on this as well. For me, I think that one of the biggest differences is best ball, the structure of your team matters an incredible amount. And correlation and stacking for me in these best ball tournaments are something that I want to do and have exposure to, maybe more so than a managed league, even in a tournament like, the football guys that we're looking at. But again, like for best ball drafting, I still want to draft the players I believe in, just like a redraft league. I think that, you get into, I think some people will reach too often and that sort of thing. Although this is not a best ball show, that's kind of where it's at for me. A little more focus on structure, making sure I cover the specific positions since I can't add to them. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, best ball structure's huge. One of the things I've learned the hard way the last couple of years is taking zeros or trying not to take zeros later on. I came in second overall last year in the DS Invitational. I was chasing Chad from day one, who was in my own league, and I was chasing him, and he ended up, holding on for dear life because my last couple rounds, he had Rashad Penny going crazy, and I had, nobody. I had zeros all up and down the back end of my roster. So in best ball, I'm trying to avoid. I'm taking less high, upside guys, and more like maybe a guy that's like the wide receiver 2 on a team where I think he can at least get me. Like the teams I'm looking at are like the Jaguars, the Texans, guys that are going to play and get you some sort of fantasy production, maybe popping a touchdown here and there. So that's what I'm kind of looking to do this year is try to bolster the back end of my roster. But I generally lean running back in best ball because I feel like you can get those random touchdowns from receivers here and there. But a lot of these tournaments now are start 3 receivers, so it gets a little bit harder to do that.
I'm certainly not going naked. I'm certainly not going naked tight end.
Yeah, that's right.
No, we can keep it moving, Theo.
George Kittle, in or out, guys? We can go short on this one. Elaborate as much as you want.
In Dynasty, I traded. I sold too low on Kittle, but that's where I'm out on him, or that's where I'm at on him. I traded Kittle for Firemouth and a second round. 2023 second round. That's how low I was on Kittle. I thought I was timing it right and trying to get out before some kind of bad news in San Francisco hit. This is way early this offseason. I don't love it, but that's just where I'm at. I think obviously not Dynasty subject for tonight, but I think he's a guy that, again, being a year too early, being out on is where I want to be.
Yeah, I'll say for me, it's a guy I haven't drafted yet, and I think you kind of like he's not a player I dislike, but you kind of see what you're really thinking. The truth is never more clear than when you're on the clock if you're not willing to press that draft button, and I just haven't been willing to do it on Kittle. Adam brought up Trey Lance early in the show. Potential concerns about the passing volume in San Francisco, could be a little more run heavy. I just think we saw Deebo Samuel make a huge leap forward as a player last year. And I think that Brandon Ayuk, Andrew and I took last week in the 9th round, is still a guy who I am not out on. So like for me, I can see the ceiling with Kittle, but it hasn't been something where I've drafted him. I've gone in other directions, whether it's like a Jalen Waddle or DJ Moore or the particular players going near him in the draft, let alone another tight end. It's really just I don't want to take Kittle over these really appealing running backs and wide receivers where he's going. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm mostly out on Kittle unless, he falls way past ADP. Obviously, the talent's there, but there's just too many question marks.
And then I'll say this. We need to spend a little time on Dalton Schultz, even though none of us really want to do it. Dalton Schultz is going extremely high. As you can see in the draft that Andrew and I were just in, the football guys we did on Half Million Billies, Schultz goes in the 3rd round, which is just nuts. He goes at the 311 here. I've seen him go at the 4-5 turn. I've seen him go in the mid-4th, and it's been pretty regularly, since July 1. I'll say this: where would you be comfortable taking Dalton Schultz, Andrew? Is there a round where you'd feel comfortable taking him? maybe that'll show how you really price him.
Yeah, maybe 6 or 7. Certainly after Dallas Goedert, if I'm looking at this board. I'm just, and I hate to keep doing this the show sheet, Theo, but just like structurally, Dalton Schultz just doesn't make. He's not where I want to be taking tight ends, and he's certainly not the right kind of tight end bet, because I just think he's. I'm gonna be mean. I'm not really a talent evaluator, but he's more or less than just a guy where I could see, I could at least see some glimmers of athleticism from Hawkinson and especially Goddard. Like I just think Schultz is there, and I think he was a pure volume guy, and I just don't know if he's going to get that again this year. Now, you can make all the arguments you want that Cooper's gone. It's just I just don't think that Schultz has the room to run, and I may be wrong. I think it's more likely that somebody else steps up, a Jalen Tolbert steps up, or Gallup steps up, than it is a Schultz just takes another huge leap.
Adam, where would you take Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, I would take him. I'm looking at main event ADP right now, and he's going to 411 is his ADP. I definitely wouldn't take him there because the guys are there. So I would take him at like the beginning of the 6th is where I would consider him. But again, I like Goddard better, so I would probably just try to keep waiting and take Goddard, or I would just take Goddard over him. But I like. Schultz, I think I'm a little higher on him as a fantasy prospect than it sounds like you guys are. Like, I think he's built that rapport with Dak. They did lose Amari Cooper. I've seen games where it's just pass after pass after pass to Dalton Schultz. It's like Jason Witten. They freaking love that slow plodding tight end who knows how to get open for 5 yards, So I'm a little bit higher on him as a fantasy prospect, but where he's going, I like the receiver. I'm in love with some of the receivers there.
Yeah, and I'll say one other thing about Schultz is I agree with you where I think that his targets should be somewhat similar, but I don't see his targets going into I don't see 125, 130 for him. I mean, he was closer to 100 last year. The reason he finished tight end 3, one of the main reasons was he had 8 touchdowns. I feel like 8 touchdowns is a hard bet. So even if his targets go up slightly, I just don't see it. I'm kind of with you guys. I would feel more comfortable if he was like a 6th round pick. But again, he's probably not a guy I'm going to have a whole lot of based on where he's going. In NFFC and FFWC, I'm certainly not out. But in FFPC, it's not something I really see myself doing. I do think that it's a very interesting kind of next 3 for the tight end position. You've got last year's fantasy darling TJ Hawkinson, who went ahead of Mark Andrews, and basically that decision tilted so many leagues. You've got Dalton Schultz, you've got Dallas Goedert, who the draft sharks are all over. We had Jared Smola talk about how he's going to outscore Dalton Schultz this year when he was on the GOAT District. We'll be interested to hear you elaborate on that. And then we have old man Zach Ertz, who had a career renaissance, or not a really career renaissance, but a season renaissance when he went from Philly to Arizona and just had a number of very, very good usable weeks. Those 3 guys are kind of intriguing. Where's your head at on those 3? We'll start with Adam on this one.
Yeah, and this is where there's so many reasons to love these guys, and I want to call it like the tight end dead zone, because it's like running backs every year. You love these running backs in the 3rd and 4th round. You talk yourselves into them, and then there's all these question marks, and I feel like it's the same thing with tight end year in and year out, and I never learn. And it's either take the elite ones up top or take 2 or 3 of the mid 12, 13, 14th round guys, pick up those guys off waivers. But just talking about these guys is exciting because I just feel like they all have such good potential. I love Hawkinson. Hawkinson was, I think, the tight end 5 in points per game before he got hurt. I was surprised that they didn't use him more. I mean, the coach there is a tight end, the former tight end. Hawkinson looked great. He had some just some spectacular Thanksgiving. He had 3 targets and a touchdown, I think, on 3. He had a primetime corner route back on a Monday night game that he caught a touchdown. He's just so good, and he's young, and he has got the draft capital. But now they've got a ton of talent there now. So it's are we high on him? Not really. Goddard, yeah, Goddard's a guy that we love over at Draft Sharks. I totally get it. We've been waiting for this moment for years. In fact, I was the year in 19 when I came in top 5 in the main event. My starting lineup for the playoffs was Ertz and Goddard and Gesicki. So I was starting all three of them, and they were all three of them smashing. So Ertz and Goddard. Now we've been waiting. Now Goddard's all by himself. So he's a guy that reason why I'm out on previous tight ends we talked about is because if I don't get one of the elite ones, Goddard's my guy. And then, but Ertz is a guy that I liked. I was really on early, listen to me, in like March, just the idea of him being there once, once they have the issues with, is Kyler Murray what's going on there? Hopkins is out for 6 weeks. So I think Ertz is a guy that could start hot, but I think maybe slow down towards the end of the year. So that's kind of the way I look at those guys.
Andrew, is there one of those three that you like the most when we put it in context of ADP?
Yeah. Yes. Hawkinson. Allow me to misquote and bastardize JJ Zacharyson research, though. I think he did like the tight end dead zone-ish, study. I don't think that's exactly what he called it, but it was more or less, what do you do with these mid-round tight ends? And if they're not the primary pass catcher on their team, it's like they're almost like, it's like a more or less bad bet. Allow me to TLDR it. If they're not the primary pass catcher and this, that, and the other criteria, then it's a bad bet. And I'm looking at let's go back to like why I like Kyle Pitts. Then let's apply that for I don't even think he'd be considered middle round, but he's probably the primary pass catcher on the Falcons. Now, if you look at the Waller, Schultz, Kittle, Hawkinson, Goddard, and Ertz, I can really only reasonably make the argument for primary pass catcher for TJ Hawkinson. It's probably Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's certainly not, the other guys certainly aren't the leaders for their team. So I think from my perspective, it is Hawkinson. He does go a little bit early. I think I'd prefer to catch an ADP break on him if I was going that direction. But Adam, I mean, you nailed it. I'm going elite early or one of the, multiple guys later. But since I'm playing the game, definitely Hawkinson and then Goddard for me would be second of this tier.
Yeah, and Goddard for me was a guy when he was falling in the 7th more often, he would be a guy that I would be taking. Now you kind of see him going between like the 6th and the 7th. I've often seen him go in like the late 6th. So I kind of liked him the most because he was the latest in the tier. We again really respect Jared Smola's opinion, and he's been singing his praises all offseason. So Goddard's another guy where like that Philadelphia offense could take a huge step forward. And it's very funny because like if we still have to target talented football players, and like our main argument for Dalton Schultz is situation, targets, all these metrics. But like for Goddard, the guy's a beast. Like he's an absolute beast of a tight end. He's got athletic ability. He can take over a football game if he's getting targeted. And I think like for me, I don't want to not have some exposure to him because I really believe in his talent. I also like Andrew's call on Hawkinson. And I'll remind everyone again, Andrews was tight end 6 last year in terms of where he was being drafted. So kind of like right in these guys' wheelhouses. And then Ertz, I'll agree with you guys. He's just not a guy that I'm like super, super excited about. But it is a very, very interesting tier. And then after those guys are drafted, we kind of see like a tier break. This board, Knox went kind of a little bit early. But we usually see like a log jam at the tight end position, where you'll see Knox, Kmet, Pat Freiermuth, Irv Smith, Mike Gesicki, Albert Okwuegbunam. They kind of go in like a straight purple, range starting in like the eighth round and kind of ending in like the 10th. Who are your favorite players in that range? Starting with Adam.
Ugh, none of them. Like I don't think I've drafted none of them. I just again, why? Because I think the guys right behind them, Gerald Everett, Tyler Higbee, David Njoku now, Robert Tanyan with the target share there, Evan Ingram, my BFF all summer. is a guy I've been taking a ton of. There's again the question mark. Albert O. We just Jared Sharks just had Mike. I think it was Mike Kliss, the Denver Broncos beat writer over there, saying that he might not even be the number one targeted tight end on the team. It might be Dulcich.
Yeah.
So, Gesicki is more of a receiver. And Theo, you and I have talked about the Miami passing tree. Like, I'm out. There's too much good talent there. And the quarterback is so lousy that I think they're just all going to cannibalize each other. If I had to pick one, I would probably go, over all of them. I would probably go Irv, just because I think they're going to pass more. And I think they've been dying to get him involved now coming off the injury. So I love Freiermuth, but the quarterback situation there stinks. So I know you guys love Komet. I know you're going to talk about the target share, and I'm going to listen, but Irv Smith would be my guy.
I would say Andrew's not in the love Komet category.
No, that's not true. I love Komet.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I didn't. He's not fun. He didn't have any good gifts. When you're searching Twitter gifs to tweet out about your Smart Fishbowl team, they're just not very fun to find. There was some girl in like a Cole Komet beanie that she pulled over her face. Like that was like the funniest Cole Komet gif I could find.
That was it.
The reason we like Cole Komet, and I don't want to speak for Dan and Andrew, is he's going to get targets. And I think that, having a tight end that's going to get over 100 targets and we're kind of starting that as like a baseline with him, is something that's intriguing. And I also think that like he falls into a range in the draft where I'm usually combining him with an upside tight end. So like I didn't take him in the main, but I've taken him kind of in some of these early drafts where, I wait on tight end, I take a Komet, and then I add, an Irv Smith type, a Freiermuth type, and I kind of double tap the position. And I haven't hated the way those builds go. So I can understand like the argument being like the Bears are going to be very run heavy. It's going to be a low passing volume. But I think that I believe in Komet, being the number 2 target there. And I think it's intriguing to get potentially that many targets for a tight end being drafted in this range. So that's kind of where I'm at. I like your call with Irv Smith. I think that like he is a guy that we had exposure to, last season, and then unfortunately he gets injured. But like if he's interesting because that offense could be really fun. Thielen's getting a little bit older. It's going to be a ton of Jefferson. I think they're going to target the running backs a little more. But like Irv could like slide in and be productive. But it is kind of like this is the real dead zone for tight ends, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah. No, this is you're right. Because if I'm taking my tight end 1 in this range, like you said, I'm double tapping another one quick because you're basically just hoping that one of them hits. Because there's so many question marks. There's so many things that, like you said, with the Komet that could go right. At that point, I'm just like, all right, let me just take 2 of these dudes and hopefully one of them hits. If they both hit, then I'm in incredible shape. But yeah, this is the true dead zone. There's just so many question marks. Some of them are the 3rd, the 4th option. Like Gesicki's the 3rd. Albert O might be the 3rd or 4th. It's just it gets wild down there.
And how about you, Andrew? Besides
Komet, I love Komet in that range. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is there anybody else that kind of stands out to you?
You know what? Not to be boring, no, because I think I'm with Adam on skipping that tier. That it really is Cole Komet or bust in that 10-11 round range. I think I'm waiting even further for tight ends then.
And we last week when we drafted our football guys team together, Andrew, we got to get another one on the schedule, by the way, as a side note, because all this talk about drafting makes me want to draft another one with you. Adam, you'd be welcome to join us on that one too. Put together a monster.
Yeah.
But there's like both of you guys are kind of on the fact that it's really intriguing that next range of tight ends, isn't it? There's like some guys where you can start galaxy braining them having a really big season. Gerald Everett, Robert Tanyan, Evan Engram, David Njoku, and then I'll throw in Noah Fant a guy who I kind of always have a soft spot for, even though it's a beat up offense. Talk to me a little bit about that group of tight ends, Adam. And we'll throw your Tyler Higbee in there. I did not mention him as well, but kind of like that very end of the tight end 2 range into like the early tight end 3s.
Yeah, the guy I've been taking in there, and I like the upside of a lot of these guys, the weekly upside. I mean, Tanyan could be the number 1 target there in Green Bay. You know, I mean, he scored it some insanely. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but he scored on like an insane amount of his targets 2 years ago. Njoku's got the upside of maybe having an elite quarterback there for half the year, over half the year. Higbee showed us what he's capable of. They haven't really gone back to him, but the guy that I'm just taking everywhere is Evan Ingram. I think people forget how awesome he is at the tight end position as far as catching passes. That Giants regime is just so bad. He had to leave or they had to leave. It both happened. And now he's got a coaching staff in Jacksonville that appreciates the tight end position, that has used the tight end position in Philly before. And I think they're going to use him the way he should be. I think they're going to move him around. They're going to spread it out. They're going to use him because he's just so good. He's not, I think he's 29. Like he's not super old, maybe 28. I'll go look, but he is injury prone. But if I'm going Pitts and then him, or this is another reason why I don't go naked tight end. If I go Kelsey and he's still there in the 13th round, man, I can't say no.
You're smashing.
And Andrew, we took him last week as our tight end 1.
I know. I'm giving you draft board whiplash, Theo. Post the board that I'm so, we have Jack Colsheen in the chat who you've got up his comment. I pulled up the draft board that he and I were in, was slow one. I think this started like early June. And of course, he's more or less giving himself credit. And here I am helping him out. He got the Gerald Everett in the 14th round. So he's giving himself a little credit here, which maybe he deserves for the Gerald Everett pick. But yeah, let me cancel this, Theo. You talk as I go and whiplash everyone again and post our Millie Billy's board from the other day.
Yeah, so we had a very tight end crazed draft room, and people had extreme thirst for the tight end position. And Andrew and I just kind of sat back in the weeds, and we were able to get Ingram. And I think he's super interesting. We've always loved him athletically. We thought he was very misused in the Giants offense. They had him doing some things that just did not fit his profile. And then Doug Peterson goes and gets the Jacksonville job, and they go and get Evan Ingram like the first day of free agency.
Yeah. And I've got the board up again, Theo, too. So
they paid him a ton, and he's super intriguing. I think we'll know really quickly, like, how targeted he is and how big of a piece of that offense he will be a part of. And I think there's a chance like his ADP could also rise a little bit because if it looks like he's going to get a large target share in Jacksonville, I mean, I think he could easily jump into that, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, that group. So he's interesting. Gerald Everett is a guy that I'm super interested in. It's kind of like Gerald Everett is like the NFL equivalent to like an NBA player who's like a 3-and-D guy, and he signs a contract with a new team every single year. Yeah. Gerald Everett just keeps, jumping teams, but he looks good. Like when the football's in his hands, he looks dangerous. And I think that like we all love Herbert, and I think there's a chance that he could just come in and have a nice season. I think he's got high touchdown upside. He's a guy I've drafted a couple of times. And then I always have a soft spot for Noah Fant. Fant had poor quarterback play his whole career, and he's produced. He's been a top 12 tight end. And, now he's in a bad situation, bad offensive pace, but I believe in the talent. And he's being drafted as like a low-end tight end too. And you can get him super cheap. Andrew and I got him in the same draft. I don't remember what round. I'll put it up on
the board's reposted. The board's reposted. I saved us.
What round did we get Fant in?
13th
round. So like Fant's falling. And as you can see, this one we had to take Evan Ingram in the 11th because there was a tight end run and we didn't want to get left holding the bag. So like he's interesting. Is there any argument to drafting Tanyan? Is it one guy we're overlooking? Because he's a guy I haven't drafted once.
Yeah, the only thing about Tanyan to me is, again, if you miss out on one of your kind of favorites here in the mix, because again, he has a shot to be their number one. I mean, this might sound crazy, like their most targeted player there. I mean, Lazard. I mean, question marks all up and down the receiving core. Aaron Rodgers is all about trust, and he trusted Tanyan 2 years ago. Now, I was way off Tanyan last year, but I think he was going in like the 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere in there. He was going in those tight end dead zone rounds. But I think if you can get him here, I think if he can come back from that injury, I think there's reason to have hope that he can see 100 targets or something like that. And if he does, he's gonna smash his ADP.
And then let's just keep going here.
Well, Theo, house cleaning note on Evan Ingram. I feel very confident that the Jaguars were going to try to trade for him before the 2020 season, before ultimately, or 2021 season, before ultimately signing him this year. I feel very confident he was a season-long target for them. So
there you go.
There you go.
I like it. As a reminder to the listeners, Andrew is in the Jacksonville community. Yeah. He's our Jaguars expert in the GOAT District for sure.
For whatever that counts.
Let's throw out. I want to throw out a couple of boring guys. Austin Hooper, Hayden Hurst. Let's say Cam Brate. Let's say Brevin Jordan. Is there anybody in that range that you want to take a couple stabs on?
For me, it's been Brevin Jordan in that range. I just took him in the Scott Fishbowl. Man, the tight end thirst in that has been insane. And I mean, I did wait forever, but yeah, it was. To me, it's Brevin Jordan. Again, another team that doesn't. I just like these tight ends, like you guys were talking about earlier. The tight ends have an opportunity to be their number one or number two target. Now, with a healthy Cooks, there's no way Jordan's going to be the number one target. He probably won't be the number two, but he could be the number two there. Young, athletic tight end, smaller. They can move him around like a receiver. Kind of reminds me of he doesn't have that athletic profile like Evan Ingram, but kind of reminds me of a young Ingram, the way use him correctly and move him around. I think he could do damage.
We're gonna wait. Okay, Adam's back. I'll say that for that group of tight ends, I've heard the argument for Austin Hooper where he could see a ton of targets. I can't get into it. Hurst, we like the offense, and CJ Uzoma had some usable weeks, but you couldn't predict it. It was like CJ Uzoma scores 2 touchdowns, and why is he on my roster if I'm not using him type guy. Theo, I'm with you on Brevin Jordan. We had Heath Cummings on the pod earlier in the spring, and he had Brevin Jordan as one of his dynasty breakout tight ends this year. He's interesting. I mean, you could paint a picture where he's the number 2 target or up or close to it with Nico Collins in Houston. So when there's ever kind of like indecision in this range of tight end, I like going young and unknown upside, and I think Brevin Jordan is it. So he'd be the one for me. I want to throw out Mo Alley Cox as well. We have a fault. We're going to ask a question about some of these kind of offenses we're not drafting tight ends from. But do you have any interest in Big Mo?
I don't know. Not really.
Yeah, no's an acceptable answer.
No's acceptable when we get this deep.
Yeah, that's true. That is true too. But probably not. I mean, maybe it's in a 28 round best ball, but he's like 29, isn't he? I feel like he's been around forever.
He's a young buck.
Yeah, if he hasn't broken out by now, it's like, what do we do? And plus, they just drafted 2 tight ends in the last 2 years. So
Granson,
Granson and Jelani Woods are there. And again, it's like Mo Alley Cox. They always seem to kind of use him. My take on Mo Alley Cox is he just never gets enough snaps, and even when he produces, he'll be on the field for 30% of the time, 50% of the time. He's never on the field. So I think it's a tight end by committee in Indianapolis. And we might as well.
They're an absolute. All those guys in this range are just like the clogged toilet of tight ends. They're going to just destroy your roster. You're going to have to plunger them every single Wednesday night when you're doing waivers. I mean, I think the clear move, and I agree, just to echo it all. I wish I had something disagreeable to say here, but yeah, it's Brevin Jordan. I would have jumped down your throats if you had said any of the old dusty guys. But yeah, don't have the toilet cloggers on your team. No thanks.
Definitely will not. And then I'll just throw it out there. We talked about Indy. Is there any hope in either of the New York teams, the Jets and the Giants? Sometimes when we find these offenses where there's positional battles, something could rise. Is there? We'll take it here. Is there a Jets tight end that you prefer? Like if you're drafting in best ball between Uzomah and Conklin?
I haven't taken any. I don't think I've taken any of them from either team all off season. Zach Wilson was historically bad last year, so I don't even necessarily believe in him. And they've got a lot of weapons there before you even get to the tight end. So I'm out there. Yeah, I'm out.
How about you, Andrew? Is there any hope for any player on those rosters?
Well, sure there is, and this is where I go back to. I'm willing to pay to find out. Like if it just so happens one of them is going to break out, then I'm willing to pay the cost of just like not knowing and not guessing correctly in one of the first couple waiver runs of the system. Now I'm not counting on it. Certainly, I don't think CJ Uzomah is going to break out, or I think he's going to be. I'm going to be starting him over a wide receiver that I'm drafting or Kyle Pitts. To be very clear in terms of the structure, right? But if it just so happens there's somebody that I'm overlooking or just don't even know about, or the next XFL star like Donald Parham, I'm willing to pay for that information. I'm willing to pay up a little bit.
Is there any super sleepers at the tight end position that you guys are on? Maybe a young player or a player we haven't discussed? Adam, without giving away too much, because it still is July, do you have any sleeper tight ends or you don't really have one you would be targeting?
Brevin Jordan would have been my sleeper tight end.
Yeah, I've drafted a good amount of Brevin Jordan. I have an absolute ton of him in Dynasty, so I hope we are all right on that. Andrew, is there anything deeper?
Don't draft this guy. Don't draft him. But there's an old. Are you guys SB Nation people? Are you guys old SB Nation people or no? You guys ever read that?
A little bit. I think
there's one of like the head guy. Maybe he's the John Boyce. He always had some bit. He's always like famous for his bits. He'd always have the when Tom Brady was making comebacks. You can't count out touchdown Tom, but it'd be like after like the Patriots had already won. You can never count out touchdown Tom, but the game's been over for hours or whatever. So I've co-opted the you can't count out touchdown Tom for old touchdown Tommy Tremble, as he's obviously known. I think he could be interesting. He'd be fun, and maybe he's more of a Kittle clone than anything. But I'd love to see him break out. I don't have a ton invested in him. But there's nothing better than a little alliteration, as I alluded to last week with Ben Gretsch. So old touchdown Tommy Tremble is a fun name.
Tommy Tremble is fun for sure. I want to pivot away. I think we covered pretty much every single tight end. We've gone over an hour on tight ends. If you love tight ends, this is the podcast for you tonight. But I want to get into a little structural drafting. I want to talk about the 1 spot and the 12 hole, where you have the turns where you're drafting twice in a row and kind of how to maximize your position. It's kind of like poker, where position at the table matters to some players. When it comes to the 1 spot and the 12 spot, I think that it's you really have a way of controlling your half of the draft if you do it right, and you have a way of maximizing your team and also clearing out a tier when it presents itself. We'll start at the 1 spot. Or what do you think is the and I'm assuming every single one of us is on McCaffrey and or Jonathan Taylor at the 101, but we're going running back at the 101. What do you think is your best way of maximizing your team in an FFPC draft when it comes to the 2-3 turn?
For me, I love the strategy of going RB and then pounding receiver with the caveat that like a guy like Kyle Pitts doesn't fall, with the caveat that one of the running backs be insane, but a guy like Saquon doesn't fall, or an Aaron Jones, like one of those guys falls, all bets are off. Leonard Fournette being 290,000 pounds, he might be falling now into I guess the news that today Tampa wasn't happy, was at 270, so he might be falling for the next
260. Give him a little credit.
260 to the next week or so. But that's why, man, drafting now, it's like, hey, you gotta buy that dip on Fournette for the next week. But yeah, so I like going running back and then loading up on receivers, especially if I can get, T. Higgins is a guy I love there. Mike Evans is a guy I was getting there before the Godwin news. But, so Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey. If I'm doing one draft, it's Christian McCaffrey, but I'm not. I'm doing a bunch, so it's probably Jonathan Taylor, T. Higgins, and I don't know, Debo. I kind of like Debo there.
But it's really for you. It's you maximize your ability at the one spot by going wide receiver. Does that also have to do on the fact that the third round is so wide receiver heavy and it really dries up? Or is it more of those are the most explosive top options that you can draft?
I think to me, it's both. I think I love, you want to, in FFPC, we're talking about specifically, you want to crush the flex. But in order to get to the flex, you got to have guys already starting, right? So in order to get to those stud receivers, number 3 and 4, you got to have 1 and 2 set. So, I love having one running back and then going 4 straight receivers. You can throw in a tight end there if you want. And that area of the draft, man, a lot of those receivers in that 4-5 range, love those guys. And to be able to stack all those guys that are right there on top of each other. And receiver dries up quicker this year than I think it has in years past. I mean, to me, once you get to like rounds, I don't know, I like Galladay this year, round 10. But once you get after that, like it gets pretty ugly. I love Jamison Crowder in the 13th, but get those receivers early, and then later on you can grab all these, running backs that are going to start via injury.
Andrew, would you agree on that? If you're getting McCaffrey or Taylor, most likely you're following up wide receiver.
Yeah. First of all, it was tweeted out today, Alex Caruso. I don't know him, but he's a DeAndre Swift propaganda enthusiast. He said it, and Theo, maybe you had something similar last year. Like if you draft the number or RB1 overall, your chances of winning in fantasy football increased by more than 50%. Did you have the stat last year, Theo?
So basically, the stat is, and this is, I believe, like 9 out of the last 10 years.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
wrong on that, but it's if you draft RB1 overall and RB24 overall, those two players scoring combined outscores RB6 and RB7 almost every single year combined.
Yeah. And I love that. And that's like you have to draft as if you're right. So if you're in that one spot and then you keep taking running backs, you're giving away every advantage that you have over the field. So this is the draft that Theo and I did last week. And I even commented, I like the colors. He painted a beautiful rainbow in terms of the order that he.
That could be your wallpaper, Andrew. If that was your wallpaper in like your powder room, you'd love it.
It's a wonderful ordering of colors here, and I could quibble with the names that are on the colors, and that's okay. But like the team one here did exactly what I would have done, especially with that gift of Kyle Pitts. Yeah, and then kept taking wide receivers, and then even went quarterback before the next running back. Like you have to draft as if Christian McCaffrey is that running back 1, and then all you're doing the rest of the draft is trying to put together or piecemeal. You can even piecemeal RB24, and you still get that same advantage. So like to me. You cannot, if you get that, if you pay FFPC or you get the FFPC gods looking after you, whichever one you choose to believe. Just kidding, FFPC. If you get that, you got to take advantage and keep going.
It's basically having 1.5 running backs starting already when you get the 101. And I would agree with you both. Every time I've gotten the 101 so far, I've gone wide receiver. But I will say there is a certain appeal to Javonte Williams, where he could absolutely smash his ADP. I think that's in the realm of possibilities in like the outcomes. So like if I got the 101, hopefully this is like a champagne problem I'll have. But if I get a bunch of 101s during the money time, I think I might have a Javonte Williams there at the 2-3 turn. Because I think his upside is there. But I agree with what you guys say. Usually structurally, I like going running back and then going 4 straight wide receivers. I've loved my builds when I've done that, from the one hole, when I've gotten them. I want to pivot over to the 12 spot. It's always a very difficult decision when you're picking at the 12 spot because, again, you don't pick till 36, 37. A lot of guys dry up. What do you think? First, before we go into players, is there a maximal positional structure where you think you're maximizing your team at the 12 hole, starting with Adam? Do you want to cover a position, or are you just going for value?
Yeah, I'm just going for value, really. I'm generally when I get the 11 or 12 in a main event or a football, guys, I'm already in my head thinking zero RB or hero RB.
Yep.
I'm thinking, Saquon Barkley there and one of these receivers, mix them and match them however you like, Diggs, Adams, CeeDee Lamb. So that's kind of the route I'm going there, and then just kind of see what how the rest of the draft falls to you, knowing that at the 3-4, it could be anything. You could get a receiver that falls down that you really, really like. It could be, a Kittle Waller situation. Probably not for me, but I could totally see it. And looking at the ADP for football guys right now, rounds 2 through 7 are all running backs in the 12 spot. So keeping that in mind. But so yeah, that's kind of the structure I'm going with. I'm leaning hero or zero RB there, and I'm fine with it.
Do you have any in your drafted teams? Do you have any particularly 11 or 12 hole starts that you can recall that you really liked how it turned out, at least with the 2 players you drafted?
Let me see what I can find. Yeah, let me pull one up.
While you're looking for that, Andrew, same question. How do you think you're maximizing your chances from the 12 spot, like the 11-12 area, when it starts to the first and second round?
I think that this is a good year to be in that 11-12 hole. I guess if we're talking specifically 12 hole, I think that you've got a good opportunity to grab either DeAndre Swift, who's got the right kind of running back profile that you maybe want, or Saquon Barkley. I know, Adam, you just mentioned that you're into Saquon too. Same for me. I think it's also a spot where you've got to avoid the traps. The board that you have up right now, I didn't want to further dunk on it, but they thought a lot of running back value fell to them. They're thinking, I drafted the 12 spot. I'm going to be shut out of running back. I'm going to be screwed.
You hate that 12-hole team, Andrew.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's like you've got to, like, I'm picking on them, but like you've got to avoid the traps. And I think that they fell right into them. So like, I think that this year so far, I've seen you got really good spots where you can get some cool and sexy running backs, but it's one of those things where you've got to only take 1 to 2 of them, and you've got to avoid the Zeke Elliott, Josh Jacobs, even if they fall, which they may. So I think it's very, very similar of, you're trying to get a hero or zero RB, and yeah, you're forced in that direction, but I think there's great opportunities so far at the first, second, and third rounds, 12, 13, and 36.
Yeah. So for me, I think my favorite build, I got a bunch of 11 and 12s. And I agree with Andrew. I kind of like it this year. I have a Diggs Swift team I really like. I've started out wide receiver with I believe it was Lamb and Diggs, and I like the way that team kind of turned out. So I think I go with Adam. You really don't want to think. I think that you actually do see some players get the 12 hole in football, guys, and they'll say I'm going wide receiver, or I'm going running back before the draft even starts. I think that's the worst way to play it. I think you want to take max value. And then kind of let those first 2 picks dictate the way you're going to go in the next few rounds. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah. How about when we get to the 3-4 turn? Okay, when we're looking at, there's a few running backs who are usually there. I've seen Breece Hall in that range. We've seen James Conner in that range. We see wide receivers usually like the Jalen Waddles. DJ Moore used to be in that range. He's going a little higher now. What do you think are some of the, you can answer this any way you want. Is there specific positions that you want to cover there because they're going to dry up in the next few rounds and you won't have the same kind of positional choices in the 5th and 6th? or are you still just max drafting value when it comes to that 3-4 turn, Adam? Do you start thinking about structure in that range at all, or is it just max value?
Yeah, I'm just doing max value. And I think I just shared the one. The best I could find was out of the 11 hole there. And I went Diggs Barkley to start. Love Brees Hall. And this is probably my only Waller share.
That's why you shared it, so you can flex a Waller share, so we're on the same page.
Right. Flex a random Waller here. Hey, listen, I'm flexing Gabe Davis at wide receiver 28. Are you kidding me? That's the steal of the year.
That's a big flex. That's a big flex. I want everybody to look in and see where he got Gabe Davis.
So yeah, I'm strictly value at that point. Like I'm just gonna let the kind of the board play, because man, I'll start, if you force me, I'll start 4 receivers. I'll start, 3 running backs. I'll start whatever I got to do. Like I want the best players. I'm not gonna go crazy and go tight end and quarterback super early. I think that's difficult to do. I did it a little bit here in the 8th. Kyler Murray, I guess in the 8th is kind of early, but QB5. But yeah, no, I just take whatever they're gonna let you have, and I like the 2 and the 11 more than I like the 1 and the 12, because you can dictate the turns there. Like you can kind of read what they're doing and play off of them. At the 12 and the 1, you're really at the whim of whatever 11 and 2 are going to.
Agreed.
That's a great point by Adam on kind of dictating, not letting the turn control the board. You're almost controlling who comes back to you. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And we didn't really touch on it, but like I want your opinion on 2 players, Deontay Johnson, and you've already kind of spoken out against Miami, but Deontay Johnson's available to you at that 3-4 turn anytime you want. He's starting to fall into the end of the 4th round. Is he ever a player you're going to consider there at that 3-4 turn?
Yeah, probably not. And so this draft was from June 7th. So this was a while ago. I spoke harshly against Dawson Knox. It's probably my only Dawson Knox share and stuff like that. But yeah, probably not, because man, there's some guys there I love. I mean, DJ Moore's move. I love DJ Moore. I like him. I'm borderline love him now, but he's like mid-third.
Yep.
Yeah, I really, really like oh my God, and this one, Allen Robinson went in the mid-5th, but I really like Allen Robinson. That's a little early for him, but probably I won't have much Deontay Johnson there. Jalen Waddle, I'll pull the trigger there. In fact, I took Waddle around that range in what was it? Oh, and I think it was the FFWC video showdown we're doing right now. I might have taken it the 4-2 or something. So I could see Waddle there, because I see a path to him, because he's very, very good. And I know you guys have been on Waddle for a while, so I'm not going to tell you that. But Brees Hall, I love there. Travis Etienne's moved up, but Deontay Johnson's not really on my board. I would probably lean like running back or tight end there before I took Johnson.
Mike Williams or Deontay Johnson?
Mike Williams.
And Jared Small is huge on Mike Williams as well from Draft Sharks. Andrew, anything to add for ways you're handling that 3-4 turn, or any specific, like your teams have, how you're usually going wide receiver there, or potentially a Brees Hall?
Yes. Yeah. Not a whole lot of pressure on Team 12. You're looked at like the class idiot, which is like plays up perfectly with what I actually am. And so I think that you can do a lot of damage with being like a little bit of a heartbreaker over there. You can mess up people's perfectly laid plans, not to be like a stack block or whatever, but it's like, hey, like, oh, I thought I was going to get, I don't know, pull out a name like, DJ Moore. If I just wait, nope, you pulled him way up, or I guess depending on like the ADP. But I think there's not a whole lot of pressure, and I think you can do different builds and be okay with it, because if you take somebody quote unquote early, well, you're already at the end of a draft. There's no 3rd round reversal. You're likely, if you're gonna let a player go at ADP, you're certainly not getting them back. So at Team 12, I think that you can mix it up a little bit and take players a round to a round and a half early, and not really feel guilty about it, because, hey, maybe you were drawing dead anyways. Like, you don't have to go crazy about it. Kyler Murray in the 5th, but I think you can do some different things, mix it up, and try a lot of different combinations and builds from that 12 spot.
So I hope that was helpful for people's structural building. And maybe we're going to touch with a couple other of these high stake guests like Adam. Maybe we'll talk about like the middle of the draft next pod. I think that's a fun mental exercise. I want to quickly we're 90 minutes in, so we can go pretty quick on this one. We see a lot of fantasy value when we're able to identify an offense that we think is going to take a major step forward that maybe the market is not, completely on. Is there any offenses that we believe are mispriced right now or undervalued among fantasy drafters that you could see taking a big step forward? Question for either of you guys.
Yeah, to me it's the Giants. I think that getting Brian Dable over there from Buffalo, Daniel Jones has I'm not even going to say similar skills up to Josh Allen because we all know Josh Allen is the GOAT, but he's a guy who can run and he can throw. And I think they're going to utilize him in a light version the way that they utilized Allen. And they're just going to be so much better coached than they were before. They've got the Tony, and they've got the Galladay and Saquon, and they've just got so much talent there that Dable's going to use. And I think they're all, Saquon's moved up now, but I still think Tony and Galladay are way too low. Daniel Jones. I love taking all three of those guys in drafts. So I think the Giants to me are the undervalued team.
Plus I saw your sexy Tony in the 10th.
Out here thirst trapping wide receiver 49. Come on.
Yeah.
Big time. Shout out to Billy Muzio who's joined us in the chat. Detroit was going to be my team. Detroit's going to have a much improved offensive line. They had so much injuries last year. Adding DJ Shark was smart. Drafting Jameson Williams was smarter. There's a chance we could see improvement from Amon-Ra St. Brown in year 2. We saw a great connection between him and Jared Goff. He was a guy that was completely leaned on. So players who, beware fading players who score a ton of fantasy points as rookies. And Amon-Ra did that. So I think Detroit's very interesting. We talked about TJ Hawkinson being hurt last year. That offense could take a big step forward. I loved your call on the Giants. We've had a number of analysts and high stakes players who've been very bullish on a Dable coach team there. There should be a ton of pass volume available to them as well. They seem like a team that could be in positive game scripts. And Danny Dimes does have rushing ability. So they're interesting. Like you could see like a number of guys beat ADP from that team. Andrew, is there maybe one that you're on, a team that you think might be a little underrated right now as a whole?
Well, this is a tough one because I think it's more of a homer pick. I am going to say the Jaguars. The problem is I don't know how to play it if I'm being honest. Because I love ETN, but I don't know how much more room he has to run. We already talked about Evan Ingram. I think if you switch Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, that those Jets wide receivers are going even higher than they are. I'm still a believer in Trevor Lawrence. I think he's a great player. The problem is like, even if I thought that the Jaguars were a much improved offense, and I think that they were rock bottom. So I think that they've got a little bit of room to run. And I think Trevor Lawrence is that guy. The question is there a wide receiver that you like to play that with? And I just think that's like the tough one. So I think, to be honest with you, like at least being here on the ground, boots on the ground, eyes in the building, ears in the building. I want to figure out if there's going to be somebody who pops from that offense. Cause I really do like that offense. And there's gotta be a better way to play it than just ETN and Evan Ingram. Yeah.
Jacksonville is interesting. They added a ton of speed and a coach who knows what he's doing. And we also usually see quarterbacks take big steps in year 2. And Lawrence certainly has a pedigree. So they're super interesting. We're at $130. Every single guest has answered one question, Adam, and you're on the spot here. And I'll let you do 2 because I think you might have a little hometown flair with this answer. But Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, and Justin Jefferson go top 3 wide receivers in every single format, every single high stakes, every single home league, every single best ball format. Those are the top 3 chalk wide receivers. If another wide receiver in the NFL finishes as wide receiver 1 overall, who will it be? You can give 1 or 2 names.
Oh man, I want to say I want to say Diggs, but I feel like that might be chalky. I'm going to go Mike Evans just because he could score 25 touchdowns. Like, I'm kidding, kind of, but he's a guy that could just if he could just stay healthy. Like he's one of these receivers that's a high jump up and catch the ball and land and crash on my body type receiver, which scares me. That's kind of like Mike Williams, but he could score 15, 16 tutties this year. He probably, I mean, if he doesn't score double-digit touchdowns, that would be absurd. But he would be the guy that could finish, to me, as wide receiver 1. But it's not going to be on catches. It's going to be on a million scores. You
were actually not the first guest who's given Mike Evans. There's been a number of sharp people on Evans catching a ton of touchdowns this year. This has been awesome, guys. I love how we dove into the tight end position so deep. I thought that was awesome. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, Adam?
First of all, I thought the question you were going to ask me was going to be like, what's my favorite pizza toppings? Because that was hot on Twitter today.
Hold on, time out.
And?
What is your favorite pizza topping, Adam?
I mean, it's just meats. I mean, right? I mean, all the meats. Put them all on there. That's every single one of them, And that's why I don't like Tua, because he's like a pineapple pizza kind of guy. But anyways.
Hold on, Adam. One. I got two more nonsenses for you. Hold on. I need you to share one more thing. Hold on.
Sure.
Hold on, Adam.
And Adam, we'll throw out, where do you eat when you're in Vegas? Do you have a restaurant recommendation as a yearly high stakes player in Vegas?
Ooh, Shope's gonna kill me. We went to an unbelievable steakhouse last year. Speaking of that, Billy's still in the chat. Billy owes me a steak dinner. So wherever Billy's taking me, thank you, Joe Mixon, for winning me a bet with Billy right here. So.
We did a pop culture, a food and culture podcast with Theo, Dan, and my buddy the Hof last year. So I always suggest Golden Steer, and then Dan and I went to Best Friend, which is an MGM Grand, and it's unbelievable. Best Friend.
There's so many. Me and my buddy have a history. We've been going out there for 15 years. We go to the buffet at Caesars, I think, which is just
it's like,
oh yes, it's just.
Yeah.
I never get my money's worth. And every year, like the next year, I go back and start in the middle because the previous year I only made it halfway. It's unbelievable.
All right, Adam.
The food pod was fun. The food pod was fun, Andrew, for sure last summer. And I'll throw out, not to get all Vegas-y, but I'll throw out Ferraro's. It's a local Italian spot right off the strip. That's my go-to spot in Vegas. I try to go there every time I'm out there. It's fantastic.
All right, Adam. Am I still the only one who calls you Uncle Chaps? Have you gotten this from anyone else? Post some pictures, Theo.
Maybe. Let me see.
Am I the only one who's ever called you Uncle Chaps?
You might be the only one.
You got to follow Uncle Chaps. He started off as a blogger for Big Cat Country, the SB Nation site for the Jaguars, and then ends up getting hired by Barstool Sports to do some of their military podcasts.
Speaking of Barstool,
you're freaking Uncle Chaps, and I don't believe that I'm the only person who's ever called you that.
Call me Barstool.
I love it. And then, hey, one last nonsense before we get you out of here. I put Ben Gretsch on the spot and said, hey, you got to do a main event with us. But I don't have to put you on the spot because you and I are already figuring one out. So I love it.
That's awesome, guys. I bet we'll question that one too. So I'll try to avoid that league. That league for sure. This has been a blast. We're back on Thursday night with Billy Wazowski, NFFC Hall of Famer. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Famous J, 1912, Billy Muzio, Josh McAfee. It's been Jack Colsheen. It's been a fantastic of Famous J's in the chat. It's been lit in the chat. So hopefully you're going to stick with us all August long. We've got some fantastic guests coming on. Thanks again to Adam. Thanks again to Andrew, and we're out.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, guys.